Please enjoy this uninterrupted episode brought to you by CourseDog. CourseDog is the intelligent academic operations platform, unifying how higher ed manages scheduling, curriculum, catalog, assessment, and more. Built on a layer of actionable analytics and seamless integrations with every major SIS and LMS, CourseDog is where academic operations drive student success. To learn more, please go to CourseDog.com. That's CourseDog.com.
Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to add up on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is Dr. Joe Salustio back with you on another episode as we march, and I mean march, towards 1,100 episodes of this podcast, if you can believe it. Just a little over 5 years, and who would have ever thought we would have done 1,100 episodes? Certainly not me. I talk a lot. That's cool. My wife tells me not to talk so much, but then I can come down here and talk as much as I want on my podcast. A couple things I'd like to let you know of in the audience. Number one, please go to higheredpodcon.com so you can think about registering for the first of its kind inaugural higher education podcasting event. Never been done in higher ed before. The EdUp Experience is leading this event. We're doing it all ourselves to try to bring higher education podcasting in conference format. higheredpodcon.com. Check it out and consider joining us in Chicago in July. And Elvin always tells me not to date these episodes, but it's kind of important that we talk about our own conference. I sort of feel like we have to do that. And then secondarily, and just as important, if you like to write, if you're into content management, for example, and you want to write something that's going on in and around higher education, maybe you've written something, maybe a trade publication doesn't want to pick it up. Maybe it's not journalistic enough, and maybe it's more about good things happening in the realm of higher education that should be celebrated. You can give us those articles, us being the EdUp Experience. We have a part of our website called EdUp Editorials, where we are publishing content given to us or submitted by our colleagues that tell positive, good things about higher education that you should or you want the world to know about. And you can submit those to me directly, Elvin directly, the EdUp Experience at gmail.com, EdUp at edupexperience.com. Virtually, it's impossible not to find us. So write an article, submit it, we'll get it published for you, get you a link, and send it out to our worldwide audience. Okay, with that, I'm going to take a breath, maybe one, and introduce my guest co-host today. She's co-hosted 3 times, but not with me, so I felt left out, and now I had to bring her to the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, she's Bridget Moran. She's Senior Content Marketing Manager at CourseDog. Bridget.
Thank you, Joe. It's great to be here and excited to finally be on the pod with you.
Yeah, Bridget, did you think that one person could get in that many words in such a short period of time? Or are you surprised, or did I pull it off?
Honestly, I'm impressed. I got it all in there.
Surprise!
Thank you. I was just setting you up to use that button. I had to figure out how to get surprise in there. But I am surprised and delightfully surprised to be co-hosting with you today. You want to just give us a quick bit about CourseDog while you're here, since you work for them and you're co-hosting with me, and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to give a very brief overview. So CourseDog is the academic operations platform. So the way I like to think about it is we help institutions manage basically all those back-end processes that go into delivering the academic experience. So whether that's creating your course schedule, managing the course catalog, going through your assessment cycles, all of those great things. So we help institutions, manage that with a integration directly with their SIS. And really our goal, I would say, is to, one, of course, help administrators be more efficient, but then 2, I think even more importantly, is helping really deliver, that student-centric experience, making sure that, everything is flowing smoothly for them. They're able to get into the classes they need. They can access the information they need, all that good stuff.
Amazing.
Thank you for that overview, Bridget. And, when you say academic operations, the job of a vice president of academic affairs, provost, high-level academic administrator is pretty tough these days. Relevance, cost, programs, skills, workforce. Gosh, darn it. There's lots of things for this person and these people to consider. So we thought we'll go out and find an academic administrator that makes the job look easy. And we brought him here today, no pressure. He's going to give us all the amazing secrets on how to be a better VP of Academic Affairs. Ladies and gentlemen, he's Dr. John Forbes. He's president of Academic Affairs at Moorpark College. John, welcome to An Ed Up. Mike, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks for that great intro. I don't know if I make anything look easy, but we'll actually.
But you do have secrets, sir.
There are secrets, yeah. I mean, that image of like how many plates do you have spinning at whatever time, and then making sure that one doesn't fall off, and then suddenly you get that one email, and you're like, oh wait, that's another plate.
I literally had circus music, but I didn't download it in advance. Had I known you were going to do that, yeah. Well, let's start off level set for us, John. Assume we have somebody listening that doesn't know about Moorpark College. You know, where are you located? Who do you serve, and how do you serve them?
Great. So Moorpark College is one of the 116 community colleges in California, right? The largest higher ed institution collaborative, we think, in the world, right? Serving over 2 million students. But our specific college is located in Ventura County. We're just west of LA. We're right outside of the traffic and the smog and all the LA stuff, but in a kind of little slice of heaven here. We serve unduplicated headcount, close to 20,000 students in this part of the world. Moorpark is a city, it's a city of like 30,000, 35,000, but other larger cities that people might know, Thousand Oaks, Simi Valley. I can look over one of the hills and I see the Reagan Library. So that's kind of where we are nestled in. Probably the largest employer in our area that people would know would be Amgen. So a large life sciences. In terms of community college, that puts us kind of in that middle in California. They would say a middle college, middle-sized college. And if you use that metric of full-time equivalent student, we're right around 11,000 annually. And so as Vice President of Academic Affairs, I have a cadre of deans of instruction, and we provide a variety of career-focused courses, but we're known nationwide and within the state as very good at transfer. So our students have very clear pathways within academic disciplines to then transfer to four-year institutions. And we've also been known for having high success after transfer, which is something that you want to look at. It's not just getting someone across the finish line, get that diploma, right? But then after they go on to a four-year school, how well prepared are they for then earning a degree, a bachelor's attainment, which is a big deal in today's economy.
Let me send it over to you in just a second, Bridget, and I'm going to ask one more follow-up of John, because you bring up something that is it just sort of gets the juices going when you start talking about transfer, because typically and nationally, transfer is very complicated. Not just transferring to, but transferring in, which I think is even more convoluted when you have someone transferring into an institution, prior learning assessments and CPLs and all of those things that really make a difference. And are we going to award credit? Are we not? Is this mapping to this? Is this not? Do we have to get with faculty to get an answer on this? And, now I'm waiting a week. And in no other business, and this is the most fascinating part about higher ed, there isn't another business where if you submit something to try to get credit for it, and it could be financial credit, but in this case, it's actual academic credit. Does the business want you to begin and then tell you later if you're going to get it, right? It's sort of a reverse sometimes of the way we do things in our normal life. It's almost this.
Well, let's start the insanity.
So I want to know, since we started talking about secrets, how are you good at transfer? Like what are the circumstances that get an institution to be efficient with transfer? Because it is a complicated thing.
It is. I would say we start off with California a number of years ago had legislation, and don't ask me to give which number offhand.
Which number was that, John?
No, which number? Right, exactly. Minus points for the VPAA because I don't remember a number. No, but it's the legislation that said Community colleges need to be supported to create associate degrees for transfer. We call them ADTs, Associate Degree for Transfer, so Associate of Arts or Associate of Science for transfer. So the CSUs, the major California State University system, would create transfer model curriculum. So we get an acronym of a TMC, Transfer Model Curriculum. And Moorpark College, over a decade ago, the faculty within their curriculum said, hey, this is well aligned with what our mission is anyways. And so let's realign our local associate's degrees as quickly as possible to the transfer model curriculum. And let's get our students earning associate degrees for transfer at the highest rate possible. I benefit from that. I wasn't here during Moorpark's piece. I was at another community college, which was also then known for high transfer and doing, ADTs. So that is a big part of it. So it's a structure thing, right? That the course itself and the course progression matches, because then the ADT is a guarantee. That's the legislation's idea, that the student then enters the CSU system as a junior and they're not repeating courses. There wasn't like some random business department at a particular Long Beach, CSU Long Beach that said, oh, we didn't like the order that you took something in, which higher ed is notoriously like good at saying, oh, we didn't like the order that you did that, or there's this one topic in this one class that you didn't have, so you need to take our sequence. So the TMC really designed to have that not be something that students have to worry about. And so Moorpark does. We have very robust, I think, that if there's a TMC that's out there, we have a degree for that. And then and then that's what our focus is, that getting students through that progression as quickly as possible.
That was such a technically beautiful answer. And Bridget, I don't know if you know this, but I did ask John this question before we hit the record button. I said, how are you so good at transfer? And I recorded him giving his answer. Let me play it for you.
I am the smartest man alive!
I mean, it was such a different answer this time around, John, but well done.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bridget. Great. And John, I think that it's so interesting when you think about the transfer process because, of course, students need to, get all of the right credits to actually get to their next step. But like you mentioned when you were saying earlier, it's also about making sure that they succeed once they actually get to that next institution. And I know that this is something, Moorpark does really well. Students, are often very successfully completing that bachelor's degree. So I'd love to hear a little bit from you, your role, academic affairs, what's kind of your role in, making sure that students are really set up for success when they get to their next institution?
Sure. As one of the members of the executive team, at a college, so you're president and typically have a vice president of student services, student support, academic affairs, and then business. Moorpark College is, I don't hesitate to say completely unique, but there is uniqueness to what we say is an integrated model. So there are deans of instruction that actually report to the vice president of student support, and I have different service areas. So we have deans that aren't just siloed into, I'm just the dean over this academic area. I also have athletics, for example, or I also have our DSPS, our disabled student population, or I'm over veterans in addition, that special pops in addition to like English. So Moorpark does try to do that, and that's something we've been called out for as unique in that. What that means for my role is that really it's a collaborative one with the other vice presidents, and it's, oh man, I loved being a dean when I was a dean of STEM because you really get your hands dirty and you can be in the classroom. You can see, this cool project students are now working on and hiring faculty directly and all of that. The role of the vice president is really one of leadership development within the dean rank, making sure that our department chairs are empowered with the resources they need to hire and then support the best instructors. I want to be known, if it's one thing across my entire career, is that to support quality instruction at every level. And so one of my roles is to resource that within the faculty ranks. And remember, by resource, that means, are people spending their time, time is an important resource, on things that maybe were just paperwork or a process that we could make more efficient? Then let's undo that, take that burden off, so they can really focus on teachers collaborating with each other. I have a number of big projects that give me a lot of, it's like the why you get up in the morning to go to work. One of them is we're focusing on math in our math department and really helping those instructors work with each other on using standards-based grading and standards-based practice and mastery learning, which is a big process to tackle. I don't tell anybody what to do, but I'm resourcing the hey, that's a great thing to do. So we'll stipend. What does the summer workshop projects look like? And then what are the outcomes, working with our Dean of Institutional Effectiveness and looking at the data behind whether we're actually seeing growth or not. So that's kind of the traffic cop, right, of things. But then of all the resources we've been entrusted with, albeit limited, right? And we can always complain about how under-resourced we are. But we are given time and we are given money and people. And so trying to find the right soup, the right recipe there to keep people focused on what really matters, which is helping students learn from a wide variety of backgrounds and progress on their career path.
You have you use the keyword focus, which for your role right now, we're seeing, and I always say, lead with a disclaimer that we don't bring politics into this podcast. However, in any administration that comes out with new regulations that affect higher ed cause us to shift and move and change and whatever else. In recent cases, it's created maybe some lack of focus for many who feel affected. There's a lot going on. There's people that are have opinions on that focus. There's funding and this, that, and the other. You've got faculty, you've got deans, you've got a lot of people that are student facing. Keeping that focus amidst perceived turmoil, or whether it's self-inflicted turmoil or legitimate turmoil, it doesn't matter. That lack of focus is easy. It frays. Your focus can fray, and all of a sudden you're thinking about something that's not related to students, and I'm not serving the student the way I should be. And you've got to refocus everybody on what matters. Is that happening? Are you having to refocus people to some degree in the changing political environment? What are you seeing amongst faculty and staff right now, and their, I don't know the right way to ask it, but their necessity to keep the focus on the student when it's easy to lose it?
Oh, 100%. I think even it's maybe more acute in the latest, kind of changeover, and we have leadership changes. An executive order this, or a court opinion that, and now this happened, or we heard this thing. So it's kind of like that's always the case, right? To stay focused on what really matters and trying to have people stay in that mindset. But it is, I would say, it's quite a bit more. Even before in the U.S. and a November election and a change in administration, the AI was there. That was, I would say, in some ways also that role, right? Of, hey, now there's this thing. It's very different. It's some people are catastrophizing what this means. And others are like embracing it, and we're seeing this division. So there was, there'll always be something that will pull your focus away, but it's quite a bit right now. I appreciate greatly the leadership structure at our college. I work under a president who has been at the college for almost 18 years. So he's been in the dean role, he's been in my role, and then he's been obviously as president, I think now 5-6 years. So that has helped a lot when he's works then with our department chairs, comes into our different meeting spaces and committees, and helps us refocus on what is it that we can do, what is our task. The whether you are letters like DEI now have a different context or different meaning. The essence of what we're about, and that's what I really appreciate him saying, is the students that walked in your door like yesterday, nothing's changed today, even though there was just something that was sent by some memo that came out of whitehouse.gov. It's all the same. Like, what are you doing to help those students learn the content that you've been entrusted with? And it's for all students. That is never, there's no argument there. It's everybody. And so let's not get caught up into that. It's hard though. And I think we're fortunate in terms of a community college not having to catastrophize over the funding pieces, because when you then start pulling the rug out of or the anticipation of like people's livelihoods at risk, and higher ed is there, right? We're just not in that. And I know that that's the case in some of my brothers and sisters across higher ed. Fortunately, right now, we're not in that boat. But that changes the context, you can't have that title and we can't fund this, or, Harvard stepping in and saying, we're going to lose $2 billion or whatever it is. I can't even imagine that. I'm trying to get like $20,000 to make sure our workforce, our workshop this summer gets funded.
That's funny. Bridget, over to you. You're right. Like $2 billion. It's like, yeah, 20,000 be great right now. That's funny.
John, I really liked your framing around, focusing on what we can do right now. And it sounds like, at Moorpark, you have a lot of different initiatives going on right now. You're mentioning these workshops focusing on your math program. And I imagine a lot of these ideas, probably come from, deans, department chairs, other academic leaders you work with. And something we often hear from our partners is, how can I make the case to my boss that this is, a project worth doing? So say you have someone come to you, how can they really successfully make their case? What type of information are you looking for them to bring you? What type of data? What really kind of, you're like, yeah, that's great. Like, let's do it.
I love that question. So yeah, I don't know what type of reputation I have as like a yes person or a no person. I imagine it might be more maybe come back, give me a little bit more robust understanding of your program or your requests and all that. We do have the institutional effectiveness, or the data people report to me, and so I also have some of that in my personal background, and so really understanding what is the data structure. In other words, how many students are we talking about? I'll just give you a couple of things. We had an initiative a number of years ago. I think it was part of COVID, and there were, we're halfway shut down or trying to support an in-person, and there was just very few students. So they did this one-time math class called One and Done. And the idea was, hey, let's get students that maybe weren't going to projected to be as successful first time in math. Let's put them in, let's feed them lunch. Let's buy them their textbooks. Let's like hand pick the instructor. And then, so that was an initiative before I got here. And then I sat down there like, hey, look at this report. We got like, 85%, and the typical is like 20% higher than I'm like, oh, well, yeah, you just resourced this amount. And so like you actually spent this amount of money on each other person, how does that scale? Like there's not a way to scale. So we do ask for a bit of what is is this a pilot? Is this something that you're going to test out to find whether something is working or not? And Moorpark College is known for designing better on the upfront, whether we think something would work or not, or whether we can see a causal impact of whatever intervention it is. And I think we've got a few Inside Higher Ed articles out there that talk about our two-way texting. with tutorial. We have some initiatives in terms of academic notice versus academic probation, and a number of different things that on the onset have helped us then say later on, oh, we really know that works. Course embedded tutoring is something that some people call it, ISS. There's other acronyms given to that type of initiative. And because we designed carefully a comparison from the get-go on what variables would be different across a semester, we were then able to point back to that we really thought there was a causal relationship for our course embedded tutors. So to answer the question, yeah, scope is important. I need to know whether there's a plan for scaling up. Our institutional effectiveness, they're very good at getting the data and setting things up on the onset. They're also really good at the literature review. I want to know, what is the theory of action behind something? This isn't just something that somebody dreamed up. If we're academics, we should stand on the shoulders of giants, and we should use academic research to know whether something has worked in the past or not, or in a different context. I think an awful lot of things that we plan up don't have that at the level that it should. And so that's why sometimes I'm known as the not yet person, or maybe the no person. But then when people come back and they're like, here's our theory of action. We think that our course embedded tutors didn't see the impact that it did in the past because we didn't do this thing and this thing. And we saw this study that somebody else had tried this. So we're going to do some of that. And can we get some money to do another workshop that helps with, in that case, it was course embedded tutors that also did mini lessons on study skills, but it was a partnership with the instructor. We also wanted to have two-way texting as a part of the course embedded tutor, so that real time, they're reaching out to students, texting with them at the moment that the quiz comes back, that first quiz. So we're like, this isn't just, you now have an embedded tutor, good luck, see what works. But we started throwing in these different things. We're like, what's the theory of action behind that? So yeah, I'm sometimes known as the go back and try again, but then let's plan it out, and as a partnership, figure out what really works. So I think we can stand on some research, and that's what we share out with others, nationwide, that we think we have some things that really work in terms of improving course success rates.
So to summarize,
It's not what you know, it's what you can prove.
Oh, I love that. Okay. Did you record me earlier?
well, you'd be surprised how my artificial intelligence tools work to, I just hack everybody's computers and get their recording. But I like what you're saying because, and you'll find this interesting. I had a conversation with a college president. I don't remember how long ago or who it was, to be quite honest, but I remember the content. That's how the way it works with so many episodes. I can remember the content. And we were talking about how the concept of a pilot, it's kind of like saying, I'll try, right? And you go back to the whole Yoda thing, do or do not, there is no try. And if you're going to pilot something, it comes with this implication that it may not work. And this president changed it to demonstration project. Instead of a pilot project, it was a demonstration project. And instead of saying we're going to pilot to see if, it's we're going to demonstrate that. And when you start changing the words, we're going to demonstrate that or why will happen, you're proving a model rather than trying to see if something works. And I thought, well, that's a really interesting way to think about it. No, does it make a difference in the way people approach things or a mindset? It might not, but that's really what you're going for. And a pilot project is that you want to demonstrate, hopefully, that it works. And you have to do a lot of research and preparation, especially with an academic, maybe less so with a blue sky thinker, a marketing person who just goes, yeah, let's give it a shot. Bridget, you know how it works. Like content, yeah, let's put it out there. Let's see what happens. With an academic, you have to go in, you be prepared. And also we have structure sometimes when you want to run a project through, you've got to get buy-in. And that's something that I think from your lens is something you have to do quite a bit. get buy-in from different groups and stakeholders across the institution, and leadership alignment as a concept is something that sometimes is hard to achieve. How have you been successful in your career with getting alignment to run things through instead of getting them stuck in a committee?
Oh, yeah. In terms of like whether it's my idea or something else, maybe? Okay.
Anything at all.
Anything.
We're all stuck in a committee somewhere, probably.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I haven't cracked the complete egg on really, like, we spend a lot of time in meetings, a lot of times in committees. Sometimes, like, when I have a little bit of reflection time over the summer or something, it's like, my goodness, we spend a lot of our human capital sitting in something, and what do we really get from that? When we're working at our best, I've really seen that there's clarity around why that group is meeting, and I think that points back to leadership. Like, hey, this isn't just we're getting people in the room to talk just because you have a role to play. You're a classified senate, you're academic senate, you're a department chair, you're a grant writer. Oh, there's a new opportunity. This is typically, right, there's a new opportunity for funding, and so let's get a bunch of people in the room because we don't want to miss out on getting money. But which is a good idea, right? You don't want to miss out on getting money. But when they're yeah, but then what was really the purpose? Like, so I think leadership, looking back at, hey, what's our overall what are some of our targets at the larger context in terms of completion, equity, closing gaps. There are special populations here that looks like from the data we're not serving well, and we want to do something about that. So I think that role of leadership of saying, hey, we're not here to tell you how this is going to be done. That's why you're in the room. We need your brains from your role and so I've in my career found a lot of momentum behind being clear up front with, here's the goal of why we're meeting together. We do this. This is about an application that we need to have done in a week. That's going to go to the board, and we want money, but we want to remind everybody, here's the data of what students maybe we're not reaching, or here's a gap of something that we became aware of that we're not doing as well in. Moorpark College, like, we need to do better with some of our workforce development, our connections with how we really serve the changing dynamics of workforce in our area. We've been very open about that, and I think that's a strength of ours, is admitting where you need to grow in. So that as an example, as different funding sources come up, of being really clear of like, hey, now what are the theories of action? What are you, between your expertise, your discipline expertise, your role as a classified, administrator or classified support, that you see we need to do that could really make a difference, and then IE is there to do that. So leadership has that role. When leadership's not there, you're like, because I've been in those meetings also. Oh, we could get $120,000. You're going to pay a grant writer. They write something up. They come in and meet with a few people, and they write up some goals and objectives and some things you could do. And you're supposed to have convenings and meetings, and everybody gets lunch. And at the end of the day, what did you really get for your $120,000? You spent the money. You did something. Maybe 5 students got an internship or something. I'm just making stuff up, but the point is, we can waste a lot of time with that, and leadership has an important role to play in defining what is keeping us focused back again to what is it that we really want to do.
Well said, Bridget.
Yeah, wow. I think there's a lot to unpack there, and I think for me, it probably comes down to, there's so many different things, you can be focusing on. You wear so many different hats. You're working with so many different stakeholders. So if you're thinking about, I have limited time, but I want to still, be digging into the data, be looking at the metrics. What are, the top metrics, top systems that you're consulting with, to really make sure that you're having an understanding of what's going on and maybe where there is room for improvement?
Oh, great. I'll start with some of the basic ones. So a typical person in my role does like the president looks to them to make sure that our enrollments are okay, or to understand at a fairly in-depth level the trends of enrollment patterns, and some people call it strategic enrollment management. What's changed because that pays the bills, right? And you have to know that interfaces at some level in almost every system within what money that you're generating and how you're staffing things up. So, then for Moorpark, I mean, it's not just if they're not here and not enrolled, then they're not completing and not transferring. It's like step number one. And so that is something that a VPA or provost, now you're working with people, but I found it really helpful to kind of continue to up my game into understanding what are the trends within each discipline is different. Each department has its own. There are similarities, but there are also very uniquenesses to how does the performing arts work, how does STEM labs work, how does computer science work, how do your CTE career tech ed classes work, and understanding the nuances there again, so that faculty and department chairs can really focus on teaching and then not as much on being wizards at when to schedule a class. I do hope. So one of the roles is like someday we're going to have maybe better AI that helps with scheduling, and I know that might be things that both companies that you guys are involved in probably have their fingers on some pulse of like that. But I don't think that'll ever replace a person in my role understanding the basics at a very solid level of what enrollment looks like. Beyond that, then it's completion. Where are you need to know what the gatekeeping courses are towards your overall progression. You should know, and the deans over those area and department chairs should have a crazy good awareness of what are the classes that have the highest enrollment but lowest success rates that get in the way of students persisting and then completing. So that's a big deal. We have focused on something new, right? I wouldn't have said this 8 years ago, but modality, right? Modality in terms of online, fully online, synchronous online, not asynchronous, hybrid, high flex, all these words that we didn't even think about. I mean, there was somebody on campus that probably had a job that was distance education, and they were all like figuring this stuff out. But
trying to rename it too. Like how many words can you come up with to describe part online, part on ground? Hybrid, high flex, hype this, flex learn, just try to rebrand it, package it.
I know. Well, and every time that somebody comes up with something, then the poor student, I remember coming, in the middle of COVID and then trying to come out for like partially back and, long meetings, right? Again, we're very good at meetings that are like, how do we define this? How do we describe it? How do we put it on the website? How do we make a video that explains to students what a high flexor is?
So it's like a muscle. It's like a muscle, and it's like next to your hamstring, the high flexor. I think.
High flexor, yeah. Did I tear one of those? I think I sprained it. I think that's a complete tear in my high flex. But yeah. So bringing back to the knowing the data, that is a big part. And it is discipline by discipline. It's major by major, and it's gonna. I mean, community colleges. I think there are few exceptions in California right now, based on local community colleges. But by and large, we're like 50-50. I'm telling you, like 50% online, 50% back in person. So what does that mean for your on-ground resourcing? How do you, what do classroom allocations look like, versus how do you continue to support high quality online? Not we have to, everybody's online in 2 weeks and let's just get by this thing, right? That's a pandemic. But really, what's quality online learning look like moving forward? Because it'll never go back. I don't see it. I don't see anywhere in the data and the enrollment patterns of anything at the community college level that's bringing everybody completely back to that type of schedule. So we are now looking at the intersection of course success rates with modality, and that should always be the case. And it is also changing depending on discipline by discipline. I would say your online, like cybersecurity, computer, anything more technical, success rates like they match, and they might even be slightly better online, right? Compare that to what we're seeing on some of our special populations not doing well online in our English, our basic English 1A classes, and then the question is, well, then do we not offer things online because we're seeing this, or struggle with, no, I think if we don't offer thing, that student's just going to enroll in somebody else's online, which is what happens. So what are we going to do about it? So a few different things, right? It's enrollment management, but then the course success rates. And I think the new dynamic of modality within all of that is something that every VPAA provost is finally tuned to and is going to have to be moving forward.
That's a lot. It's a lot of spinning plates. And then there's one really, really big spinning plate called artificial intelligence around a provost VPAA right now, because you have this group of stakeholders called faculty that you're dependent on for teaching and learning that have a very wide range of adoption of AI. And then, this efficiency that can be gained from AI and making those things balance. So that's a whole nother podcast, I think, a whole nother conversation. But, you think about those plates and then there's this other really, really big plate that you have to have out there, not even just in operations, but adoption. And getting people to adopt things is hard. It doesn't matter what it is, right? I mean, think about when you had cable. When you had cable and everybody's like, well, Netflix is the new thing. You got to dump your cable. How many of us kept cable for a really long time because we just didn't want to drop it? Now, I was one of those people. Now I have no cable. I only have streaming services, but we held on as long as we could. BlackBerry, Blockbuster. It's a lot.
Yeah, and remembering that Netflix started as like you get DVDs in the mail and you get 2 at a time and you can watch them and you put them back in the mail. Like I remember I was listening to a different podcast and they were talking back to that of just where Netflix is and YouTube these days, the whole landscape. It's fascinating, but no, AI, big spinning plate. One of the strategies that I was talking with our Senate president about was, I think as a college, it'll help us as we maybe define out first. AI is a thing. It's like saying, let's talk about air. Some of you breathe it. Some of it's up there. Some of it's down here. You have it under. You can put it. You can store it. You can. AI. It's a whole lot. It's academic honesty or academic integrity. There's how do you use it? How do you create your own Nectar AI to be a tutorial? And you're finding that it's answering questions quicker. And just as accurately as the instructor would have for basic knowledge, and I can create my own, chat bot that's going to be really save me a lot of time. AIs that are helping. So there's the efficiency of the instruction itself. There's AI buckets of the operations of a college. Like I kind of mentioned, what is our Chat GPT version of next year's spring schedule look like? And I think we're on the cusp of that. There's some we're trying to explore how some of that could look, but that's that will be the case. There's going to come a point where we're going to understand a whole lot better some of that. So my point is like put it in a bucket so that you're not just walking into a conversation or somebody, again, all those committee meetings where we like to talk a lot. I've been in far too many already where someone's like, and what about AI? And then suddenly we're like 40 minutes into talking about 5 or 6 different things about AI and no one's solving anything because no one's really drilling into whatever. And inevitably I'm hearing the same patterns over and over again. And we got the early adopters, and these people don't like these people, and these people are saying this is gonna we're all gonna die, not die, but I mean no one's gonna hire us anymore because they're gonna be teachers that we don't need anymore. I mean, I read an article yesterday. It was like the Texas, it's a K-12 system, K-8, and they're just teachers are called guides, and the AI does that was just hit the kind of the media yesterday or 2 days ago. I'm like, okay, I'm waiting for somebody to bring that up.
Fully AI teaching and learning with guides on the side. I mean, it's a crazy world. Bridget, you know a couple things about this with where you work, and I want to ask you if you have any other questions for John as we get close to closing it out.
Yeah, I think one of the questions that I've been thinking about is, there's a lot of change, right? We have these new modalities, new terms, AI, and we know higher ed loves the policy, right? So I'm sure that there are, a bunch of new policies being introduced, making sure, everyone is acting in the right way, all of that good stuff. But how do we make sure that those policies are really, centered around the students, that they can actually, clearly be able to understand, what they need to do? I would love to hear your perspective on that, from the academic affairs office.
Well, I think that would be foundational to any policy and any system that's creating a policy that doesn't center the student. Is in the wrong. They need, that should be the case. Now, we have plenty of policies. I'll just pick on academic probation as one. I mean, how long have we said if you get this many D's or F's over this amount of time, we're going to send you a letter that's called probation, taking language from criminal justice systems, right? And saying you're trying to learn. I don't know. I mean, when you take a step back from a student perspective, and then you're like, "That's lunacy." Maybe there's a thing that you can say. Yeah,
but you did a good job.
There was a button. So that is an example of and we ran a trial that just changed the notice or the emails or the letters that went out to just a academic notice, and it had the type of language that was then more growth mindset and help the student understand that we want you to persist, we want all this, but there's been a couple times that you tried this thing and it didn't work out. So here's the next steps that we need to increase the supports, and that we need you to walk through those doors. We need you to walk through some additional supports to then get there, because we want to keep trying at this, but we need to do something. And that's the intent of academic notice. It's like it's saying, don't just keep signing up for that same class and failing it over and over again. We got to do something different, and you have a responsibility to play in that, as opposed to you're on probation. And then what that also has meant to, honestly, more justice-involved populations in the history of our country. And you look at the roots of that, and you're like, we really screwed up for a long time, even using that language. So just as an example there, a policy that then should be more student-centered. I think when it comes to the AI and looking at things, we're going to want to have some understanding, obviously, of academic integrity and what that means, and leaning on the traditions of what it means to produce your own work, and when you turn that in, what that means. But then counter that or supplement that with what the workforce requires. We're hearing overwhelmingly from a number of employers that they don't want to hire anybody. I'll just pick like an English major, or someone in our biotech, biomanufacturing, that doesn't know some of the relevant tools in that industry or in that sector of AI, and how to use them, how to do prompt engineering, how to use it within a data set to, before it was AI and ChatGPT broke our world down, it was machine learning, right? And people were good with just kind of leaving it over there because we don't know what that means. But it's the same stuff. It's like taking large data sets, using learning algorithms to have it then generate something novel based on patterns. And that's in every industry. So if we don't have a policy that then centers the student on that, and just says no, no AI, for example, then we're going to miss out.
Bridget, I see you have a giant animal climbing all over you right now here on the podcast as we're recording.
We have a little cat appearance.
A cat appearance, which we love animals and kids. Even better if kids show up while we're recording. That's the best. Bridget, how did you feel about this episode and your co-hosting gig here with me?
This was great. I really enjoyed it. I'm a California native. I'm actually about to move back to the state. So I always love hearing these success stories.
Where are you moving back to the States?
I currently live in DC and I'm moving to San Francisco. So the cross-country move is about to be here.
Wow, moving back to the state. I love it. That's a far drive. That's about as far as you can get, DC to Cali. All right. Or
Yeah.
Maine to San Diego. But California has a lot of community colleges. In fact, very recently I saw in person Dr. Rowena Tamenang, who's the Deputy Chancellor, who I've interviewed on this podcast, who I ran into at AACC, sorry, so many acronyms. And there's just a lot of good work happening at the community colleges in California. Very innovative academic affairs VPs and provosts across the system, and of which our guest is one of. You know what I mean. It's been a long episode, long hour. You know what I mean. He's innovative. He's doing great work. And that example of language, no one has brought that up before in the almost 1,100 episodes. And it makes so much sense. Probation. So punitive. And we're trying to be inclusive and not exclusive. And language matters so much, John. Thanks for that great nugget. Such a great nugget. Ladies and gentlemen, he's our guest. No, he is your guest today. He's Dr. John D. Forbes. He is the Vice President of Academic Affairs at Moorpark College. John, thanks for being here, man.
Hey, it was wonderful. Thanks for the questions and for listening to me to ramble a little bit about our passions.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've just upped.
Thank you for listening to this uninterrupted episode brought to you by CourseDog. CourseDog is the intelligent academic operations platform unifying how higher ed manages scheduling, curriculum, catalog, assessment, and more. Built on a layer of actionable analytics and seamless integrations with every major SIS and LMS. CourseDog is where academic operations drive student success. To learn more, please go to CourseDog.com. That's CourseDog.com.